Well, hey there, folks. It's Dr. Franklin, and I'm back again with part two of the moral psychology lecture. In particular, folks, this is coming out of chapter 6 of your textbook Questions in the Psychology of Religion by Kevin Siebold. And in this particular presentation, folks, I'm going to talk about Jonathan Haidt's moral foundation theory. I'll also spend some time talking about neurons, chemicals, and the role of evolution in cooperation. And I'll also spend some time talking about how social networks affect health and different ways that researchers look at assessing fairness as it relates to empathy and how we interact with others. Well, let's start off talking about Jonathan Haidt's moral foundational theory, since in previous lectures slash discussions I talked about Haidt's moral psychological research. Haidt believes that there are 6 moral foundations that oftentimes guide individuals' decision making. They include the following: fairness slash cheating, sanctity versus degradation, loyalty slash betrayal, care versus harm, liberty versus oppression, and authority versus subversion. He viewed these foundations as evolving through evolutionary inheritance, and each foundation had an original trigger as well as current triggers. For example, the original trigger for care slash harm was the distress of one's child, but that has evolved to include other children. The original trigger for loyalty slash betrayal was the threat to the in group, but that has now evolved to include things like sports teams. He believed that we are not all oriented to these 6 foundations in the same manner. Some of us are more affected by care slash harm or fairness slash cheating, while others are more oriented toward loyalty slash betrayal or authority versus subversion. When trying to understand why a person takes a particular position on some moral issue, for example, abortion or gun control, it's necessary to know what moral foundations are motivating a person's decisions. These moral intuitions, based in his theory, are thought to come first, so these are going to be operating at an automatic or non-conscious level. This is the case for moral positions we hold as well. When making moral decisions, von Economo neurons in the anterior cingulate cortex and frontal cortex help us to process gut feelings and determine the morality of social interactions. These von Economo neurons play an important role in morality because they are vital in connecting brain regions that mediate social behaviors. This includes the perception of bodily states or gut feelings that are utilized in determining social interactions, and even moral ones. These von Economo neurons are relatively large neurons characterized by a spindle-shaped body and a single dendrite facing in the opposite direction from the single axon. They were named after the neurologist Konstantin von Economo. Given the role of neurons in helping us make moral decisions in social interactions, some researchers have sought to understand other physiological components connected with our ability to make social connections. Oxytocin has been studied given the importance of cooperation in social relationships. Oxytocin is a chemical that is implicated in a variety of physiological responses in the body, including lactation, facilitation of birth, regulation of brain growth. It's also implicated in social bonding, parental relationships, and is linked with conformity, trust, in-group conformity, and empathetic behaviors. When looking at empathy, altruism, and moral senses and the interconnection, it appears that this connection may have developed because there is a selective advantage to individuals of a species that express those traits. For example, there are some advantages like they live longer, they have a greater food supply, they have more protection, they have more fulfillment, etc. The way in which individuals may have a selective advantage is through cooperative behavior. If altruistic behavior, empathy, and a moral sense leads to more cooperative behavior and the individuals that practice that live longer and produce more offspring, then there is a high likelihood that in the future that type of behavior may become typical of a species. Additionally, successful or right behavior and unsuccessful or wrong behavior will be codified in the fabric of the community, leading to the generally agreed upon rules of behaviors or morals. There's a great deal of evidence to support the idea that relationships with others are important. Human beings are social creatures and we're driven by our biology and our cognitive mechanisms to make connections with others. In September 2003, a group of doctors, research scientists, and mental health specialists issued their report titled Hardwired to Connect. They were brought together to address the specific problem of why are children today at such a heightened risk for emotional and behavioral disorders. They found that children in the latter part of the 20th century and the 21st century are not making these connections, and as a result, problems such as depression, anxiety, conduct disorders, and suicidal thoughts have an increased likelihood to occur. Many speculate that what is true with children is also true with adults. Given that Americans have become increasingly disconnected from each other and there is a decrease of social structure organizations like the Lions, like the Elks, and like the Kiwanis Club. Americans join these organizations less, they trust less, they give less, and it's found that they also socialize less. Robert Putnam, in his book Bowling Alone, documents the decline of social connections and refers to social capital in the way defined in the presentation. Just as society must have physical capital like buildings and machinery and cultural capital, for example, knowledge, skills, and education, a society must have interconnections between members of that society. This is where social capital comes into play. And let's talk about two types of social capital. Bonding social capital consists of resources that help strengthen ties among members of a particular network. For example, this could be a friend bringing a meal to you if a loved one has died, while bridging social capital is characterized by links among individuals from separate networks. For example, like individuals from different institutions exchanging contact information at a conference. The social capital may be provided by all members of the network, and it serves to benefit not just the individual, but others in the network as well. Research highlights that perceived support from family is linked to lower stress exposure and improved health behaviors, such as diet, exercise, smoking cessation, and medical regimen. Sometimes networks may not produce positive health outcomes, though, in that caregiving directed toward members of one's own network can produce high levels of stress, reduced immunity, and an increased risk of infection, doctor visits, etc. Also, marital dysfunction is correlated with dysfunction in the immune system, and poor mental health in a spouse can affect one's physical health. Since we've been talking about bridging social capital and bonding social capital, let's go ahead and segue into talking about how social networks affect health. Social networks can improve healthy behaviors and discourage unhealthy behaviors. An example of this can be seen in a friend who runs with you in the morning or a spouse who encourages you to stop smoking or eat a healthier diet. Social networks can also provide an environment through which positive and negative life events can be interpreted. There are some downsides to being a member of a group, though, and one example of this can be in that how one thinks about a particular issue can be heavily influenced by the group to which one belongs. Sometimes individuals will go along with what the group thinks to maintain identity in the group. When we're stressed physically, socially, or psychologically, the hypothalamus, and a quick and easy way to remember the functions of the hypothalamus is to think of those functions as being the 5 F's: feeding, fornicating, fever, fight and flight, falling asleep. The hypothalamus directly and indirectly causes the pituitary gland to release adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH, which eventually results in the release of a stress hormone, cortisol, from the adrenal glands. Now, under healthy conditions, the pituitary gland also inhibits the release of cortisol and lowers the levels in the body. Under abnormal conditions, this negative feedback loop system does not work properly, and high levels of cortisol remain in the body and contributes to various stress-related disorders such as high blood pressure and cardiovascular disease. The sympathetic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system mobilizes along with the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis system to respond to stress, and it causes pupil dilation, increases in blood pressure, heart rate, and respiration. Under normal, healthy circumstances, the parasympathetic nervous system brings the sympathetic nervous system back down to a place of homeostasis. The immune system is also involved in the body's response to stressors. It consists of numerous biological processes and structures that detect a variety of pathogens, and it distinguishes those pathogens from the body's own tissue and responds to the pathogens to neutralize them. Ultimately, rich social networks helps to maintain health in an individual through facilitating the positive effect of each of these systems. When social networks are impoverished, the individual is more susceptible to stress and disease, and all of this can result from extended exposure to stressors because the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, the autonomic nervous system, and the immune system are compromised. So, we've been spending these lectures talking about morality from the standpoint of empathy and altruism and moral foundational theories, and looking at it from a physiological level and how we serve groups, how groups serve us, how it affects our health. Let's end the presentation by talking about fairness as it relates to social interaction. One of the ways in which researchers investigate fairness, or at least how we perceive it within a social context, is through trust games. These trust games can be played as one-shot games or with multiple trials between the same two participants. One type of game is called the dictator game, and it involves two participants. One player is assigned the role of dictator and is given the responsibility of dividing a sum of money between the two players. The money can be divided any way the dictator chooses. Player 1 can keep all the money and give none to the other player, or player 1 can divide the money between the two participants, keeping some and giving some to player 2. Player 2 has no choice but to accept the gift from player 1, whatever that gift may be, including no gift at all. Now, when these games are typically played, the mean gift is around 20%, but gifts up to 50% are frequently seen. The fact that any money is given at all can be seen as cooperation or even altruism because the gift is costing the dictator something and benefiting the other player. Now, another version of the game is called an ultimatum game. In this version of the game, player 2 can reject the proposed distribution. And if that happens, neither player gets any money. Now, from a rational standpoint, player 2 should accept any money given because any money is better than no money at all. But most likely, player 2 will reject what he or she considers to be an unfair offer. This will incline player 1 to make offers that he or she believes will be accepted. In the ultimatum game, mean offers of 40 to 50% are typical, and the likelihood of rejecting the offer is 50% if the offer is less than 20% of the money available. These trust games suggest that there's a social preference for fairness, and there is evidence of reciprocity in these games as well. There's a be nice to me and I will be nice to you type of relationship going on. Playing these games multiple times resembles the social situations in which human beings find themselves. In the one-shot game, the dictator will give money to the individual if he or she is concerned about their reputation and if he or she wants to protect their reputation. This is especially the case if one is surrounded by pictures of others, actual others, or is primed about God or the divine.